Welcome to the first of 19 candidate forums for the 2025 general elections in the Cayman Islands, proudly hosted by the Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce. My name is Omari Corbin, and I'm honored to serve as the current president of the Chamber of Commerce. I am pleased to also be one of the panelists posing questions to our candidates this evening. Before we begin, I sincerely thank each East End candidate. Ms. Delmira Borden, Mr. Roy Del Carter, Mr. John McLean Jr., Mr. Isaac Ranking, Mrs. Jiva Richards, for accepting our invitation to participate in tonight's forum. By appearing together on this platform, you demonstrate a shared commitment to the democratic process and to the people of East End. Your presence signals your readiness to address the pressing issues raised by the community through a recent chamber survey, which has helped shape the questions we'll be asking tonight. While time won't allow us to cover every question submitted, we will do our best to focus on the topics identified as the most important to voters, both across the Cayman Islands and in East End. When the Chamber was founded in 1965, it was built on the principle of supporting, promoting, and protecting the interests of our members and the wider community. Remaining strictly nonpartisan, we have proudly hosted these candidate forums every election since 1988. We've provided a neutral platform for 9 elections where voters can hear directly from those seeking public office, helping our community make informed decisions on Election Day. The questions for tonight's forum have been carefully developed based on past and current chamber surveys, our 3-year advocacy agenda, and submissions from the public in various constituencies. No candidate has received these questions in advance, ensuring a fair and open discussion. As an organization committed to supporting a strong and sustainable Cayman, the Chamber's advocacy efforts focus on 3 key pillars: building a future-ready workforce, sustaining economic success, and advancing quality of life. The newly elected Chamber Council believes these pillars are fundamental to our island's continued growth and prosperity. Looking ahead, the Chamber intends to work with the incoming government to develop a government accountability scorecard to ensure accountability and transparency. Additionally, we will seek representation on key government boards and authorities, as we believe our members bring valuable expertise that can help shape effective policies and initiatives. These forums require months of coordination, and I'd like to acknowledge the tremendous effort of Will and our chamber staff who have worked diligently behind the scenes. I'd also like to express our gratitude to Foster's, CUC, and Logic for their generous sponsorships which have made these forums possible, and to our media partners, Cayman Mall Road, Cayman Live TV, Government Information Services, and ICCI-FM for broadcasting tonight's event. We are live streaming the forums, making it easier than ever for voters to tune in from the comfort of their homes. We hope this added accessibility encourages even greater participation in the democratic process. And now, it's time to begin. I'll turn the proceedings over to Will Panu, CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, who will serve as tonight's moderator. Will outline the forum's rules and introduce our East End candidates.
Oh, good evening, candidates. Here are the rules for tonight's forum. Each candidate will be asked 10 questions. You'll have 2 minutes to elaborate on each question if you choose to do so. I will notify you when the timer is elapsed, and we will move on to the next candidate. Each candidate will be allowed to answer the question without interruption and is free to differ with an opinion or position of a fellow candidate during their allotted response time. Candidates shall deal solely with the issues, and we'd ask that no personal attacks be permitted. At the conclusion of the forum, each candidate will be allowed 2.5 minutes of a closing statement. So now I'd like to introduce the candidates for this evening. First candidate is Isaac Douglas Rankin. He's running as an independent. He earned his high school diploma at the East End Primary School and the Cayman Islands High School. Rankin began his career at the Cayman Islands Public Works Department before joining Cable and Wireless in 1985. He progressed from assistant shipping clerk to customer engineering manager, and in 2003, he co-founded Business Solutions Technologies Group Limited, a telecoms consulting company. Rankin was elected as the representative for East End in the 2021 election. He served as parliamentary secretary for Planning, Agricultural, Housing, Infrastructure, and Home Affairs before becoming the Minister of Youth, Sports, and Culture in September 2023. He is a Parliamentary Management Commission Council member and was part of the Standing Public Accounts Committee until October 2023. Welcome. Mrs. Jiva Richards is a candidate running for the Cayman Islands National Party. She's a lifelong resident of East End with decades of leadership experience in people management, budget oversight, and project execution. As CUC's former customer service manager, she successfully led teams manage resources efficiently and ensured high service standards. Jiva holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Management with a minor in economics from the University College of the Cayman Islands, graduating magna cum laude. Passionate about family, culture, and community, Jiva is committed to integrity, transparency, and accountability. She understands the concerns of East End residents and aims to address critical issues facing her district and the Cayman Islands. As a generational Caymanian mother and grandmother, she is vested in shaping a prosperous future for all and is dedicated to building a better Cayman. Welcome. Roydell Carter is an independent. He has a career spanning over 30 years in various sectors. He began in the local banking industry before joining the Cayman Islands Government Department of Environmental Health, where he served for 30 years, including 16 years as Director and Chief Environmental Health Officer. He retired in 2018. He also pursued entrepreneurial ventures and has been an adjunct lecturer at the University College of the Cayman Islands for the past 3 years. He has served on several committees and boards, including the Tourism Accommodation Board, Liquor Licensing Board, Hazard Management Cayman. Mr. Carter holds a bachelor's degree in environmental health and a master's degree in occupational health and safety management and is pursuing a Doctor of Business Administration. Welcome. Mr. John B. McLean Jr. is running as an independent. He is a businessman with a background in tourism. He is dedicated to promoting tourism and economic development in the District of East End. He has successfully managed several tourism-related businesses and firmly understands the local economy. His focus on tourism and economic growth are central to his campaign. Welcome. Delmira Bodden is the People Progressive Movement candidate for East End. Born and raised in East End, she comes from a family that embodies hard work and service. Her father, a seaman and civil servant, and her mother, who served East End families for 40 years, instilled in her the values of resilience, compassion, and dedication. With over 21 years as East End's Community Development Officer, Delmira has steadfastly advocated for families, seniors, and youth. And as the founder of the East End Community Association, she has led beautification projects, supported local sports and fishing tournaments, and worked to preserve the district's traditions while fostering new opportunities. As Chief Shelter Warden and Manager of Disaster Grants, she has played a critical role in pre- and post-disaster management, ensuring East Enders receive the support they need in times of crisis. She's committed to strengthening her community and ensuring that East End is a place of opportunity, resilience, and proven stable leadership. Welcome. At this time, we're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back to begin the questioning of the candidates. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Chamber of Commerce Candidates Forum for the constituency of East End. It's now question time. All the candidates have been seated randomly. They had to select their names out of 1 to 5, so it was all fairly seated. So they picked their number, and that's what is the order of questioning. Now I turn it over to Chamber President Omari Corbin to ask the first question.
Mr. Rankin, can you share why you have decided to run in this year's election and how you intend to represent the people of East End if elected?
Thank you so much. First of all, I want to thank you guys for inviting me to participate in this Chamber Forum for 2025. And I'm seeking re-election because I am committed to continuing meaningful work for the people of the district and make sure we have positive changes. By working with an elected government, we're able to make sure that we enhance the quality of life for the people of the district, and also through implementation and refinement of policies, want to be able to achieve realistic and impactful goals and develop partnerships with the people of East End in collaboration with the government.
So, thank you for the question. I've decided to step forward in this particular election because there are many issues facing the country, and in particular East End. And I felt that this is a crucial time for us to address those issues. I believe that I have the ability, I experience and skills, and more importantly, I have the love of the people of East End and the country at heart. In my introduction, it was noted that, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother. I want to be able to assist or help work with a government to move the country in the direction where all of our people benefit.
Arthur?
Good night, and thank you for the question. Good night, candidates and everyone. Certainly, let me just clarify, I'm a born and raised East Ender. My family resides there. I grew up in East End, and I'm always there. So the reason why I decided to run is quite clear. Over the years, East End District has encountered numerous challenges. Delays, inadequate facilities, and failures. I am running for the East End Member of Parliament to address those concerns, the lack of action, and to deal with the numerous unfulfilled promises. I have been actively listening to the public during my canvassing to hear what their concerns and issues are, and some of those have been numerous, similar, repeated, and so forth. They're all common in terms of not having things done or lack of facilities and so forth. But I will continue to listen to the families in East End. I have not yet met all of the families, but in my canvassing, I will get there, and I intend to do so. But I believe in the strength of our community. I hold their traditions and self-worth and their desire for solutions in high regard. And I'm dedicated to serving the people of East End. Through my bold leadership, and together we will tackle the issues and work to build a more affordable, sustainable, thriving community in the District of East End. With integrity, commitment, and experience, I will strive diligently to represent everyone fairly, and I propose various motions and so forth to ensure that the people of East End deserves the best.
Good evening, everyone. This is my first rodeo. I've been striving to assist my people in East End for many years. As you know, I ran first in 2009. Excuse me, I'm getting over the flu, so I'm a bit hoarse. The people of East End deserve better leadership, straight up. There's a multitude of things that need to be addressed in my district. Yes, there have been some degree of attention to the needs, but it's come 6 months or 3 months before an election. That said, my aspirations for my people is I cannot sit back and allow the government budget to be spent and we don't get our fair share of that. For instance, in Northside, there's 40 homes that were being built, low-cost homes, and not one in the new subdivision in East End. Only recently, 3 have been connected to the original subdivision. My people deserve better. My people realize that there is lack of true leadership, and it's time that we change that and focus on the betterment of our people. There's no time to play, guys. You know, I don't play politics. What you see is what you get. That's been my motto from 2009. I'm genuinely caring about my people, and I've never left the district. I will always stay in East End, and I pray to God that the people of East End recognize my efforts. I've served on various sporting boards in the district of East End. I've encouraged the youngsters, you know, and I promote East End whenever I bring international clients to the island. That's my first stop, to have lunch, dinner, whatever. So I have a lot to contribute to my district, and I pray the people of East End will see that in this election.
Ms. Borden?
I have decided to run in this election. I was born and raised in the district of East End, and I made it a personal choice to volunteer and to support the people of East End. 21 years, I was privileged enough to work with them from a professional capacity. Over the time, being a resident of East End, a grassroots East Ender, I realized that our community has been very much neglected. I have decided to run. Not only are we faced with the issues in East End, we are faced with these issues throughout the Cayman Islands. Our people cannot afford homes. Cost of living is very high. We need access to health care. I am running in this election for the child that don't have insurance and need medical care. I am in this election to stand up for my people who need housing. We need immigration reform to put Caymanians first, understanding that we will need work permits. But for too long, we've been disenfranchised. And we must stand together as the PPM government has, who has strong, stable leadership. I cannot be a lone voice, but as a group, we can respond and get the job done. The East End people place trust and confidence in me because they know I have demonstrated that all of my life. And I intend not only to represent them, but to ensure that they are not forgotten any longer based on the condition that the Eastern District is in at this time. We lack a lot of resources. We can no longer cross Health City and die on the way to the hospital. I am going to repeat that as much as I need to do it. We need housing, we need to deal with cost of living and education. Thank you.
Right, I'm up, and I'm going to start with you, Mrs. Richards. So the first question that I have, what 3 national issues would you seek to address if elected?
Undoubtedly, there are many, many issues facing the country, but unemployment is one issue that has impacted many, many people across the country. Immigration issues, immigration reform, which impacts things like infrastructure, it impacts healthcare. These are many, it's immeasurable the impact that these have. Also, traffic. It may seem as not one of the most pressing issues, but it impacts quality of life for many people in this country. When you wake up and you have to leave home and feed your kids in the car or when you're coming from East End, in our case, where your kids have to get up and be at the road at 5:10 in the morning, they're losing quality of life. So these are particularly pressing issues that we need to address in this country. Unemployment, because our kids are going away to university, they're coming back, and the opportunities are not there for them to get jobs and to be productive members of our society. Immigration, once again, because that is tied to infrastructure, it's tied to unemployment, is tied to education. It has to be reviewed. It has to be tied to opportunities for our young people, which we can tie right back again to unemployment. So many issues, but those would be the top three that we would want to address.
Mr. Carter?
Yes, thank you. The top three issues that nationally is the cost of living, immigration in relation to job opportunities, and thirdly, the forgotten people or the forgotten Caymanian people in this country. And I will elaborate on that. But the cost of living, like we said, the cost of living is a myriad of different factors that contributes to cost of living. It's not one single factor, but it involves things like the cost of housing and the cost of rent, the cost of each time you go to the supermarket, the prices seems to change. I shop for my dad fairly often, and each week the prices of goods, the dollar cannot stretch the way that it used to. And I know that a lot of people are hurting nationally in that regard. And it's even worse when people are on minimum wage or they're working part-time or have no work at all. So those are challenges that certainly are impacting cost of living. On immigration, I would call for what I refer as an immigration pause. An immigration pause will allow time to review some of the situations that's going around with immigration. There'll still be need for permits. Obviously, we can't do without that because we don't have the population numbers to actually address all of those things. But an immigration pause, and during this immigration pause, all Caymanians who want to work should be able to get a job, period. And if there are people in jobs now, let's give them some notification and hire in Caymanians once they're qualified. There's no reason why Caymanians can't have a job in their own country. The last point it says the forgotten people of the Cayman Islands is quickly that all of this development and all of this building and all of these things that are going on, we are leaving our people behind.
Thank you.
Mr. McLean, Jr.?
I'll start off with crime, guys. Never in the history of Cayman have we seen such rampant crime happening around. I contribute that to that. It's too many people on the island. There's too many work permit holders, and I'm going to be probably the only one that can bluntly say this. I have never seen the amount of disrespect by majority of the work permit holders that we have. We have to vet them. We have to put more power in the police hands to deal with the situation. I'm not saying all of the police, but a lot of the police are driving by when there's certain things that are happening. These things need to be nipped in the bud. I mean, recently the situation with the tourists down in 7 Mile Beach, that has never happened. You know, we're not that type of nation, and we need to address these things immediately. So for those officers that are not doing their job, please leave. This is my country. Fight for it. You're in a pivotal position to protect us. It's not only issuing tickets, it is protecting the citizen. That's one. The employment of Caymanians. There are people that are in pivotal positions throughout the islands. And I detest the fact that you're in an HR position, a manager's position, and you're not hiring my Caymanians. I will fight for my Caymanian rights in this country. I will also fight for their spouses if their spouses are not from this country, equally. But if it's for a marriage of convenience, I will fight to get those people off the island because that's not correct. Nobody's going to use my people. If there's work permit holders here on island that don't have a job, you got to go too. If there's illegal people, you have to go. We have to put our country first. We have to put our people first. And any job in the Cayman Islands are for us, the Caymanians, number one. Last but not least, the work permits. We cannot rely on work permit revenue anymore. That's ludicrous. We shouldn't have any unemployment when you got 50,000 people on work permits, straight up. There's no need for that. You know, with Chamber of Commerce, you guys been around a long time. I would ask for you guys to emphasize that with your board. Please push for no unemployment in the Cayman Islands. Thank you.
Spalding?
The three national issues we would seek to address includes immigration reform. We must have a firm approach with immigration, where we ensure that Caymanians are first. The abuse of work permits, we must clamp down on the abuse of work permits. We must also ensure that we are reflective of the job market, the labor market, and where we need work permits. With that being said, we will also ensure that we create a task force, a multi-agency task force to do enforcement. Enforcement embodies a number of things, which I am of the opinion renewals for work permits must be attached to the task force to understand the Caymanians that are unemployed, and they come first. The task force must also be diligent and watchful. Not every renewal of a work permit is a renewal. There is a Caymanian waiting on that job. Let us work together in harmony, but Caymanians come first. The second issue I want to address, if elected, is housing. We would need a public-private sector partnership with Judy Concessions to lower the cost of housing for people in the Cayman Islands. When we lower the cost, Caymanians will afford housing anywhere in the island and not on projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, Mr. Rankin.
Thank you. The three national issues, I guess, is similar to some of those that have already been mentioned. For me, it was having a balanced immigration reform, because that touches so many other things. But in having that balanced immigration reform, you must also remember that a lot of our entrepreneurs are also Caymanians who have also put in work permits to ensure that the business thrive. We must also ensure that our balanced immigration reform is attached to for what I see as the scholarship recipients of the Cayman Islands government, or any of the business in the country that gives them scholarships. We must be able to find a way that the businesses would know that which students are overseas and when they are coming back. And we must have that into the business plans for any of those companies that have more than 15 work permits. We must have balanced, sustainable environmental practices. If we continue on the trajectory that we're on, the blue iguana won't be the endangered species, will be a Caymanian. And we must ensure that whatever we do, whether it be environmental practices, whether it be immigration reform, we must be able to do what we can to ensure that the survival of Caymanians. The third one is an inclusive education system, inclusive, where that we are teaching our children our culture and our heritage, because that is also fast disappearing with us as Caymanians as well too. And that was not necessarily the fault of our children, but the fault of us as those who were handed down the culture and heritage from our foreparents. But whatever we do, it must be sustainable, it must be balanced, and it must ensure that we protect our people of this country.
Thank you.
Mr. Carter, we'll start with you. East End residents waste countless hours of productive time in traffic daily. What ideas would you recommend to reduce this time and to improve traffic conditions?
Thanks for the question. I just want to follow up on the last thing that I made before I answer that. And when I said that the people are being forgotten in this country. Years ago, the Cayman Islands were referred to the islands that time forgot. And over a period of time, the country seems to be developing, but we are still leaving our people behind. So we're not moving in sync or in tandem with the progress that we ought to be making here. At least not all of the Cayman, especially the man on the street or the young Caymanians in particular. With regards to the traffic situation for the national, so with regards to the traffic situation, there are things that need to happen that can reduce traffic. One is that obviously the east-west extension would be something that I am in support of. So I hope that we'll be able to get that progressing through at a faster rate than 2060, I believe I saw somewhere on the map. I think that with some re-engineering and some practical common sense solutions, we should be able to get that completed. The other thing is that the transportation system needs to be improved. We do have some buses that are traveling towards East End, but sometimes the passengers get left along the road at Northside Road because they do not complete the entire route. And I am willing to take some action where persons like that, those drivers, if they continue that, they should be suspended and ultimately fired from the job, because there is no reason why other people should be delayed because of them. And there are a lot of people that requires caretakers and others. The other thing is that some of the East Enders also use the bus as a transport to work. The other thing is that perhaps there could be some staggered hours for some of the people employed in Central Georgetown. It's always been an objective of mine that we have some of the decentralized government services in the Eastern District. There's about time that we move some of these services to the East End. There's no need to travel to Georgetown for all of these essential services. And it's something that I'm prepared to do, to bring those services and decentralize them into the Eastern District. So it will be eastbound. Eastbound, baby.
So I will repeat the question again. So East End residents waste countless hours of productive time in traffic daily. What ideas would you recommend to reduce this time and to improve traffic conditions?
I do support the new road, the bypass road. I do support that. That's one thing that needs to be addressed and completed as soon as possible. That said, we should have an alternate route. I would say, I'm going to put myself out on the limb, but that's what leaders do. I would say we should put maybe a bridge with minimal impact from the Rum Point area and drop it somewhere nearby the airport, for example. We need to think outside the box. The traffic is going to continue to bottleneck nearby Hurley's. So even with the bypass road, we're going to still have that issue. Also, people on work permits. Again, I'm throwing myself on the limb, but I was a used car dealer before, and I think that anybody that's on work permits should not be eligible to import any cars. I think that should only be for locals. If a work permit holder wants a car, they should be able to buy a used car on island or through a dealer, straight up. And that in itself should reduce some traffic on the road, because multiple cars are being imported by work permit holders, and I know that for a fact. Otherwise than that, I think Mr. Carter addressed the public transport. I do also concur with that. It's ridiculous that these bus drivers stop Frank Sound and don't go around Queens Highway. There's multiple times I've seen many people stranded for up to 3 hours. That needs to be addressed, and not to talk about them stopping in the middle of the road, blocking traffic. They should be immediately suspended and fired. And we need to implement a proper transportation system that's on time and reliable, not only for us, but for the tourism product that we have. When the tourists come and they want to get somewhere in time, we need to have a reliable service. So that's what I think needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Mr. McLean Jr. Ms. Borden.
Coming from the district of East End, 4 and 5 a.m. has become tiresome on the working people of my community. Having to get up that early to get children ready, to get to work on time, and sometimes children are dropped to their schools ahead of other students and they're too early. The traffic problem that we have in the Cayman Islands has to be addressed from more than one angle. We have to have a public-private partnership where everybody don't leave the same time in the evening and everybody don't leave, have to go in the same time in the morning. When schools are out, remember the traffic flows very good from the eastern districts. Clifton Hunter is where most of our children attend school, or East End Primary School or Northside Primary School. We meet traffic in Bordentown. The National Development Plan would speak to us needing, and this is my opinion, to create a high school for Bordentown, Savannah, and an area of Prospect to alleviate the school people that are transmuting into town on the weekday. That is one solution. Clifton Hunter has alleviated or provided convenience for us, but we still bottleneck at Bordentown. So if the population is growing fastly, and we have so many students, it requires us to plan and have another high school in those areas. That will help alleviate traffic. East-West arterial, we support that. And we support a reliable transport system. For too long, we've talked about it. We were here 4 years ago, and we can no longer continue to be here. We must take action, and we intend to take action with stable leadership, with solutions for the people of this country. We're going to hit the ground running and get it done. We were here 4 years ago, and we discussed this, and nothing has happened.
Thank you, Ms. Borden. Mr. Rankin.
Thank you. To address a lot of these traffic issues that we experience in East End, it's not just about building the East-West arterial. The East-West arterial will help. It will also give an alternative route when the main route is blocked by whatever disaster has happened. But I just did some basic rudimentary math. And I figure on an annual basis, the people in East End, right, is costing us over $35 million annually. Just do some basic math in lost productivity on the way to work and from work. To address that issue, you're going to have to have a reliable public transportation system as well. You must use technology, and that would allow some of our Caymanians to become entrepreneurs. But we can't have an Uber in Cayman, right? We must look at technology to assist us. Whatever we do to solve this problem, it's not going to be something that's overnight, because that problem didn't just happen 4 years ago. That problem has happened from several 4 years ago, right? But it's at a time when we must address it. The East-West arterial, the first phase of that is started, right? It was used recently at the agriculture show. However, I believe in following process, and there was a process to do an EIA. Do I agree with it? No. I didn't agree with it because I considered the access road to be a national security issue as far as I was concerned. And I didn't agree with that, but it's there. We have to follow the process and make sure it gets done. It's at the end of the stage now, so I expect that once I'm elected, that we'll get that road built up to, in the first phase, up to Lookout Gardens.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Mrs. Richards.
Thank you. So I'll reiterate what I said earlier. Quality of life is reduced for the residents of East End and the eastern districts in particular from Bordentown upwards. We do need a proper ground transportation system. We've done the studies. We've just not implemented them or implemented the recommendations. So we need to do the public transportation system, but it can no longer just be private bus owners. It has to be a combination of government scheduled owned buses in conjunction with private bus owners working together to produce schedules, reliability, ensure that people are aware of when they're going to be available for and the schedules, the routes they're going to take. We also have to ensure that we're putting out bus stops for those buses. Right now, they pull over randomly. It blocks traffic. It adds to it. So proper public transportation system partnered with government and supplemented by private owned buses. But that also has to be regulated and policed. Right now, there's none of that. We also have to have completion of the east-west arterial. As we've said, it is something that has been in the works for some time. That will help to alleviate some of the traffic. It is not the only solution. And there are long-term plans that we need to look at, reducing the number of cars on the island and limiting how many cars we have on the island. Right now, there are well over 40,000 licensed vehicles on the island, which in and of itself cause road congestions for everybody. And finally, I'd like to say that...
Thank you.
No, thank you.
At this time, we're going to take a commercial break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more questions for the candidates.
For the past 58 years, CUC has strived to be more than just an electricity provider. We have sought to be a foundational company. We give back to our community, and with the hard work and dedication of our employees, we have built and maintained one of the safest and most reliable electricity grids in the region. As we all look to the future, we at CUC want the Grand Cayman community to have confidence that our commitment to you will continue. Join us as we continue this journey together at empoweringcayman.com. For the past 58 years, CUC has strived to be more than just an electricity provider. We have sought to be a foundational company. We give back to our community, and with the hard work and dedication of our employees, we have built and maintained one of the safest and most reliable electricity grids in the region. As we all look to the future, we at CUC want the Grand Cayman community to have confidence that our commitment to you will continue. Join us as we continue this journey together at empoweringcayman.com. For the past 58 years, CUC has strived to be more than just an electricity provider. We have sought to be a foundational company. We give back to our community, and with the hard work and dedication of our employees, we have built and maintained one of the safest and most reliable electricity grids in the region. As we all look to the future, we at CUC want the Grand Cayman community to have confidence that our commitment to you will continue. Join us as we continue this journey together at empoweringcayman.com.
All right, question number 4. I'm going to start with you, Mr. McLean. And the question is, what is your plan to address the Georgetown landfill?
For sure, we don't need no more studies done. Excuse me. The Georgetown landfill, I honestly just think that we need, it's a waste of time and money from multiple governments at this stage. We need to have a proper recycling program in place. And if it means that we, bid it out or go joint venture with Dart, for example, I'm not calling his name no more than he has been in the forefront. Let's do it. Let's get it out of the way. Let's start recycling. Let's not allowing the landfill to become into a real Mount Trashmore. I mean, seriously, for many years now that we've been kicking this football and no one has the gall to stand up and say, listen, we're going to sign the contract, we're going to get it done. And that's one of the things I would support. And God help me to be elected. Just get it done, get it going. I mean, we look like a bunch of clowns. Each government just keep kicking the football down the road and no one has the gall to stand up against it. That's my opinion.
Ms. Bodden?
Project was the best solution to manage Cayman waste. I think, which is the dump that we're speaking about. We call it Mount Trashmore. I believe that in the last 4 years, it was failed to be prioritized and deadlines was missed. Again, we cannot keep kicking this bin down the road. We have to deal with the dump, and we must prioritize providing the solutions. The Regen project was actually implemented by PPM, and it can be carried forward by them because it's their original plan. And recycling is one of those things, along with other plans to manage Cayman waste.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Rankin?
Thank you. $1.4 billion. Let's throw that out there. $1.5 billion of cost to this country over 35 years. I was not prepared at this point without some sure way of finding that funding to saddle the people of this country with that kind of debt. That's what I would have done. But to find solutions is going to take education campaign, or recycling. We're going to have to find ways of investing, and whether that be, again, by public or private partnership, we have to find ways of investing to ensure that we can deal with the issues of the landfill or the trash that goes to it. While it's all good in terms of the regen and the waste to energy, which is something that would probably be good, there were issues that I guess people never paid attention to that was still surrounding that. But one of the things that I did not want to do was just go whole hog. And if we're going to do that, we should do that by investing with our people's money so that they can get the return on investment for any large projects that we have to invest in, right? We must always keep that in mind for our people. But we need to look at different solutions. We need to look at different solutions. Again, it may just take some common sense approach to having these things. It don't matter which government has done it. Government has done it previous 4 years. Government has done it before that. But it's always seemed to be a problem that has popped up to stop it from going. When previous to the PPM, it was done under the UDP when they had agreements to do it. When they was going to remove the location, what happened? I just throw that question out there. But certainly, it is something that we have to take and have serious consideration on. And I am prepared to deal with it when I'm elected again, but in a more sustainable manner.
Thank you. Mrs. Richards, promise the sound won't go off this time.
So the Georgetown landfill, I can tell you what we can't afford to do. We can't afford to ignore it any longer. The impact to the environment, to tourism, to the people working on the dump. You know, it's dangerous. That's a fact. We've done multiple studies that have cost the government hundreds, thousands of dollars, and we keep kicking the can down the road. So while it is not a quick solution, we do need to start with a combination of things. One, I fully agree and that we need to, from a long-term perspective, look at expanded recycling. How can we reduce the amount of trash going to the dump as a first step? But how do we then start to remediate the dump? It has to be done, and it has to be done as quickly as we can get it done using the information that we have. Granted, there are always new technologies that are coming out that might help us, but I do feel that what we have to do is we have to prioritize it, and we have to ensure that whatever results come out of those studies are implemented, and we no longer kicking the can down the road.
Thank you. Mr. Carter.
Thank you. Waste management in this country has always been one of those hot subjects and topics that it seems like you can't get a hold of. But in honest truth, I'll say this, so that previously I've worked with at least 14 or 15 ministers over the years, and we're still back at square one. And some of the former ministers would say to me, how long does the lifespan in the landfill? How many years does it have left? And by the time I would tell them, well, we could make it if we do certain things. And they say, typically, all we need is 4 years. Do you get what they're saying? They're only concerned with 4 years. If it doesn't happen on their duty, on their shift, it doesn't really matter to them as a priority. Now, over the years, a number of reports have been done on the landfill, and there was this contract that was signed between the government, referred to as a public-private partnership, where the government would help assist or facilitate with the sort of regulations and those kind of things, and not to necessarily hold up the project. And the private sector would, in this case, it was design, build, finance, and operate. So the finance initially would have been by the private sector. But over the years, I'm not sure how the amount of money to build a project increased so significantly than when the project started. And I just want to say that this is a project that would be contracted over 25 years and not just 1 year or 5 years. So that included capital costs and so forth. It included waste management or waste to energy facility, a combination of recycling, and a number of other things. But just think about this for a moment. Each person on average with a population of approximately 88,000, 87,000, and a waste generation per annum of over 130,000 tons. That's equivalent of roughly 4,000 pounds of waste and garbage alone, excluding all the recyclables. So we need to change our behaviors.
Ms. Borden, we'll move to question number 5. Education is critical to the success of the youth and our future. There is an increasing divergence between the quality of education in public and private schools. What measures would you support to correct this imbalance?
The measure that we need to correct the imbalance is we must look at delivery. Delivery includes teachers, the quality of teachers that we have. We have to have an assessment process, not at the end of an education cycle or term. We must have it during the process. It's too late to know that a child has not excelled after graduating from primary school, for example. The private sector, I believe that they should be allowed to attend public schools to avoid inequality. And I believe that with education, parents participate. They're involved in participating in their child's education. With all of those factors together, I think that we would have better outcomes for our children as far as education. We need education reform to implement a dual education system, assessing the fact that some children are not academically inclined, but the dual system would include trade schools and mainstream education, giving children a real chance in the public and private sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Borden. Mr. Rankin, I will ask the question again. Education is crucial to the success of the youth and our future. There is an increasing divergence between the quality of education in public and private schools. What measures would you support to correct this imbalance?
Thank you for the question. The measures I would support has to be in partnership with not just the school or the teachers. It has to be the government, the private sector, and most important of all, the parents. We need to have full parental involvement with our kids and our education system. We have done stuff as a government. We have brought in math specialists. We've done a number of other improvements to the school. A lot of our government schools are improving when they do the inspections. So I am happy that that is happening. But certainly, if the government schools wasn't improving, why are then so many private schools sending their children now to government? Why are now the government schools full bursting at the seams? All right? But what has been started and in terms of the improvement in the last 4 years, I must say has done a lot to improve. For example, Northside Primary School has gotten a good, first time in this island a primary school has gotten a good, right? And that doesn't happen by happenstance. It happens by investing in our teachers, in our schools, in our programs, and in our students. What we need to do now is ensure that as a community and as parents, we are completely engrossed in ensuring that our children will do well. There have been studies that shows that in the primary school, at that level, by the time they reach year 3 or year 4, you can actually tell in which direction a child will probably go. And we need to start using and looking at those studies. Not every single child is going to be a lawyer, a doctor, or an accountant, all right? Some of the most successful business people are tradespeople. From East End, we have excellent tradespeople, right? So we must encourage children and find out what their desires are and which direction they want to go, and encourage them by implementing programs and stuff in the schools, starting from the primary schools, straight through high school, and into technical college if we need to.
Thank you, Mr. Ranking. Mrs. Richards?
I'd like to address the first thing is the reason that private schools or people that have kids in private schools are moving them to public schools is because it's free and the cost of living is high. That's an issue we have to address. The divergence in terms of the differences between private education and a public education is stark. Of the 16 schools, public schools, we've had 4 that got a rating of good. So the first thing we need to do as a country is determine why our schools are not meeting the standards. That means that we have to understand what issues our children have and how we can address them. So we need assessment programs. We need to identify the issues, ensure that children are provided with the support that they need to improve academically or otherwise. Introduction of TVET or incorporation of TVET programs are a must, simply because not all children are academically inclined. Absolutely, that's something. But we need to have standards. We need to ensure that whatever is being taught in our schools across the island is consistent, and our teachers are provided with the support, the training, and the resources to ensure that our children are getting the education that they deserve.
Thank you, Mrs. Richards. Mr. Carter?
I'll be bold enough and say that the big difference comes with having to pay high school fees in the private sector. People and the parents pay more attention to the children versus the public school. Now, I'm a student of public school, and I think most of us here are all from the public system. And basically, what you put into the system, basically, you get the benefit of that. But it involves people working with you, and you get the attention, you get the support, because you're absolutely right. Some students need additional assistance, and you have students across different levels that are incorporated into the public system, and we try to make the best of that. Now, I was lecturing at the tertiary level, and there are students that sometimes attend classes that I'm appalled at the level of where they're at that institution. And it has to do with trying to find these gaps, not just identifying them, but take action to close those gaps and to make sure that we do the best for our children. Oftentimes, if we can save some time in traffic up and down from East End back and forth, parents will also have more time to spend with the children. Because I've been at the assistant at the program that is held at the public library in East End with some of the youth and so forth. And it makes a difference when they go there and you spend an hour or so with them to improve their reading, to improve their comprehension skills and their math abilities. So if we start on the foundation, we will continue to improve it regardless of whether it's private or public sector. The other thing is that there are many children in East End and throughout this island that are still trying to get into preschools. They're just sitting at home. They need to learn from that young developmental age. Parents are at home with their children, and they still need to get their children in school to start that learning process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Mr. McLean, Jr.
I think, first of all, we need to embrace God into the schools. Secondly, we need to embrace our traditional values into the school. And thirdly, the teachers should be paid on performance-based. We have 500 and plus non-Caymanian teachers in the school. I think we need to reduce that number and make those positions available to our local people. In order for our people...
Excuse me?
Thank you, sir. In order for our people to excel from a local perspective, Christianity must be placed in the school because that is the foundation of the Cayman Islands. We cannot no longer accept children coming out with satisfactory results, even from the primary school level. We have to recognize their shortfalls, and we have to address them immediately. And we have to gear them from middle school and high school for various positions in our society, whether it's doctor, policeman, fireman, etc. We have to recognize that and channel those people to those positions. Otherwise, we're going to continue to need work permit holders. and I'm sorry, but I think that we need to reduce the number of work permit holders and put our people there first. We have to have a stronger teachers that teach exactly what needs to be taught and not what they think need to be taught. And I think that will help a lot with the situation.
Thank you, Mr. McLean Jr.
Yep. Okay. All right. No break for you all. So we're going to jump right into question 6. And this one will start with you, Mr. Rankin. The government recently released a white paper for public feedback on proposed changes to immigration. What changes would you support to improve the current system?
I'm quite familiar with that white paper. And some of the changes, at least one of the changes that I would like to see implemented there, I believe that the civil service should be subject to immigration control. What we've had is the private sector, for example, they work in private sector on work permit, and then when it's near time for them to roll over, to get into government, and when you work in the government, you don't have immigration control. You're not subject to immigration control. You get a stamp on your passport and you're able to work. And then they meet the time to apply for residency and stuff. So it's a much easier path for them to work for government. But I also certainly believe in support, and the majority of the senior people in the government also support that as well. So I believe from that white paper, we must be able to have the civil service subject to immigration control. The second thing that I want to say that I support is that we should not be growing our population artificially through the means of work permits. I believe that we should have our population growth primarily by descent and by legitimate marriages. That's where immigration and population growth should come, and by Caymanians having more children. Because right now, we are outnumbered significantly, whether it be total population or the amount of work permits that we have. That is in part as well through, I guess, somewhat of Cayman's success, especially in certain different fields of financial sectors and stuff like that. But certainly, I believe that we must have a proper and balanced immigration reform policy that we can ensure that our Caymanians get the opportunities they need, but ensuring that they are also implement policies that make sure they are properly qualified to take those jobs on as well, too.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Mrs. Richards?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, no problem. The government recently released a white paper for public feedback on proposed changes to immigration. What changes would you support to improve the current system?
First and foremost, I would definitely support the implementation of the same, not some, but the same standards for civil service permit holders as is currently expected for private sector. It is, in fact, a loophole that needs to be closed. It's one that has impacted many areas for us. We have to look at the number of permits in general that are issued across the board and tie that to jobs for our Caymanians and those persons that are qualified. We also need to look at from any paper, but particularly from that one, looking at the types of permits that are being issued. We're issuing work permits for apprentice jobs in Cayman when we have unemployed Caymanians. So for me, those are the main areas that we need to seek to close gaps and to ensure that it's fair across the board. Thank you.
Mrs. Richards. Mr. Carter, do you need me to repeat the question, or you're good to
yes,
go?
Go ahead and repeat it for me.
Okay. The government recently released a white paper for public feedback on proposed changes to immigration. What changes would you support to improve the current system?
Thank you. Now, some of the comments that have been shared by the other two candidates, I would support in particular that civil servants should be on that rollover basis, or at least they need to get permit in the first instance, because a lot of times people are hired into the civil service and it doesn't give the Caymanians an opportunity, or at least it seems that way. The other thing is that the requirement that you have for advertising some of these jobs seems to be a bit of a joke. At one point, it wasn't advertised, and another means advertised, and if you don't go through work, I understand now that if your application, if even applying for a job doesn't go through work, you don't even have a chance of even getting a job. So that is ridiculous. The extension of this, the current system needs to change in terms of the point system. I think, like I said before, that is driving up the cost of housing because they're going around buying up all of the affordable homes and driving the costs through the sky. So Caymanians can't get a job in that regards. What I would like to do is that immigration, the reason that we're having a lot of problems with immigration is because we don't have the resources here on the island at this time. So I'm proposing that we need to mass train Caymanians, right? That we need to mass train them. So if we need 50, 100, 200, for instance, the teachers, we have a lot of teachers that there's room for growth for Caymanians. So why not let's take the bold approach and say, listen, we need to train 50 teachers each year for the next 3 years or 5 years so that at least we can start to make an impact on that. In that case, and we do the same for some of the other technical and vocational trade. And when I talk about technical and vocational, I'm not just talking about the mechanical and so forth. There are other trades and semi-professions such as teacher's aide, medical secretary, and those kind of things, pharmacy technicians, etc.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Mr. McLean, you need me to repeat the question, or you're good? Okay, thank you, sir.
I would support the change in immigration, that there be no more status grants. I'm going to put myself on the limb because I think that if someone is here for 9 years, for example, and they want to become a resident, I have no issue with that. I just don't think that you should have eligibility to vote. I don't think that they should have a Caymanian passport because there's been many occasions out there that Cayman has gotten a bad name internationally for new status grants. I'm not saying new in the last year, but over the years. And I think the time has come that we need to buckle down and realize that we can be sufficient with the amount of local Caymanians coming out of school, because it's hindering, especially in the government, for example. We have 1,500 plus non-Caymanians in the government alone, and they graduate to be us. Where does that leave the students coming out of school? I know we got to take a holistic approach, but we always have to put our people first. And that would be my 10 cents into that.
Thank you. Ms. Bawden?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, ma'am. The government recently released a white paper for public feedback on proposed changes to immigration. What changes would you support to improve the current system?
The white paper, I think, was in response to immigration reform. And term limits on work permits and when you can apply as a right to be a Caymanian. There was also the definitions of Caymanian and Caymanian from birth as a right. I believe that there's some terminology within the immigration law that has to be rephrased and reworded within the law. Immigration reform must come as a result of unemployed Caymanians in our country. The white paper is a discussion paper. I would also include the voting public to participate in making the decisions and taking an opportunity to be a part of the discussion paper to implement not only law and policy on how they want the immigration framework to reflect what is Caymanian, what immigration reform should look like moving forward. And these are the measures that's going to be put in place to be the Caymanian Protection Board, not only for employment purposes, but also the issuance of work permits and ensuring that Caymanians come first. So this is a very important document. It is a discussion document. I want to repeat. It has some good points in it. I refer our listening audience to review that and to participate in understanding that there are some things that we need to change. Again, a work permit renewal should not be something automatically because you have a work permit. We must clamp down on the abuse of work permits, and we must ensure that Caymanians are first. To do that, we must invest in education and training. We must strengthen the available resources and also allow Caymanians to become business owners in the process.
Thank you.
Mrs. Richards, we'll start with you for question number 7. Now, this is a two-part question. 7 Mile beach erosion has reached crisis levels. What immediate and long-term solutions do you support to protect this vital area while safeguarding property and tourism? And how do you propose funding the cost?
So, thank you for the question. So, immediate solution would be to work on remediating the issues that we have now. So, replenishing the sand in the areas that are impacted most particularly. Long term would be looking at construction along the 7 Mile Beach corridor, looking at setbacks, looking at development that would bring benefit and what the impact would be. I also would support more intensive environmental studies for funding of this, for both the replenishment as well as those studies. I do feel that the developers are the existing property owners in those areas that are most heavily impacted should bear a significant percentage of that, albeit it is government. But in many cases, those developments, because of encroachment on high watermark lines or construction nearer to the beach, have caused the erosion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Richards. Mr. Carter, I will repeat the question. 7 Mile beach erosion has reached crisis levels. What immediate and long-term solutions do you support to protect this vital area while safeguarding property and tourism? And how would you propose funding the cost?
Yes. Before I answer that question, I just want to say that, one of the other things that we need to do with immigration is to remove all the criminals and so forth, and that'll be one way of reducing the population and the permit. So once a criminal act, they commit an act, it should also be removed. In regards to 7 Mile beach erosion, listen, the 7 Mile beach erosion is not sort of a new thing. It's a natural phenomenon. And of course, over the years, with climate change and all that playing a role into the weather patterns and so forth. But even prior, the natural contours of the beach along 7 Mile Beach have been disrupted by developers, the failure to follow rules and regulations, a number of waivers for special people, the construction of walls right out in the sea. At one stage, the people wanted to get out to the sea with great haste, and now the sea is coming to them, and it's a big problem. So you always wanted to get to the water, and now the water is coming to you, and now the government must fix that. Listen, these things require, here's what I would do as a recommendation for long term. I would, in the interim, I would allow some temporary fix in terms of the beach, if it's in a serious state, some temporary relief in terms of maybe replacing some sand there, but it's not going to be at the government expense. In the long term, what I would like to do is to encourage those developers and those owners who have all of these walls and encroached on the beach to tear it down, remove it. And what I would do in terms of that, and what the government through their process should be able to facilitate these developers to move further inland, and if they need to go up 5 levels or 10 levels now under the new regulations to reduce their footprint and to shift their pool on top of the roof, I would encourage that and facilitate that. But that's an expense. Majority of that should be covered by the owners and not government.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Mr. McLean Jr.
Yes, it's obvious that our planning department has failed us by what's, has taken place with the 7 Mile Beach in allowing people to build walls, etc., beyond the natural shoreline. I would recommend that we remove those walls, let the sun and the nature take its course. And future building, we build on pilings for the long-term reliance on nature in order to balance it out. Because otherwise we'll continue having the same thing. To say that we spend monies on sand from the government, maybe we should go 50-50, because they were the ones that provided the blueprint in order to build, and the government approved it. I mean, that's just my take on it. I just don't think the government can afford to spend millions of dollars on putting sand there. And I honestly believe that as a fisherman, knowing the tides, the way they work, I think that you should be able to remove the walls and let it settle, and you'll see the sand come back and go as natural as possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McLean Jr. Ms. Borden?
You repeat the question, please.
It's a two-part question.
Yes.
7 Mile Beach erosion has reached crisis levels. What immediate and long-term solutions do you support to protect this vital area while safeguarding property and tourism? And how would you propose funding the cost?
The immediate and long-term solutions start with, we need experts in that field, scientists, to tell us really what's going on to make an informed decision. Rising sea levels is one thing because of climate change. We have beach erosion as a result of development. I believe if the walls that is on 7 Mile Beach has contributed to the erosion, I think there should have been a press release to ask people to voluntarily take their walls down to protect the rest of the beach on that stretch. If it has not, if erosion has not started to occur. The PPM government initiated the National Conservation Act. We must also take into consideration best practices of the National Conservation Act in itself and how to preserve and protect our environment, especially knowing that tourism is something that we want to be sustainable, but also have the hotels and the beaches and the things that sell our tourism for a very long time to market it. I believe that we should create a fund and have a public and private sector partnership where we just increase by a small amount, room tax or something, and that fund would assist with replenishing the beach, and it would be a public-private sector partnership. Let us work together to resolve these issues because it affects the livelihood of the Caymanian community. It affects our tourism product and developers. So we can make an informed partnership to work together, create a fund, charge a little bit more taxes. Let us protect our tourism product.
Thank you, Ms. Borden. Mr. Rankin?
Thank you, sir. While some people say that the 7 Mile Beach is the gem for tourism, of course, I disagree with that because I think East End is a gem. It is something that we must protect. This is where most of our stay-over tourism are located. And what we've seen happening, again, did not happen overnight. Climate change, rising sea levels. So if you go back and look at some of the overhead pictures, 1994 and stuff, you'll see that the sea wasn't where it is at now. Right? So building walls that was 100 feet from the high water mark at that time is now no longer 100 feet from the high water mark. Right? There've been studies done, not only by some of the people who are concerned about what's happening on the beach and owners and developers, and then there's been studies done by the Department of Environment. Now what has happened is that beach replenishment is not rocket science. It's been done all over the world. right? It's been done in Florida. It's been done in other countries around the world. And we have to look and see what suits Cayman. The other aspect of all of this as well, too, is that we have seasonal weather called nor'westers. That moves the sand up and down the beach. Why can't we also find ways of, when the sand comes off the beach, find ways of getting it back on shore, replenishing the beach, right? The current situation, a number of the owners of the properties itself are willing to invest in the beach replenishment project, but certainly the government must find ways of encouraging that and facilitating those investments by those owners by not getting in there and creating red tape for simple common sense solutions.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin.
I'm going to start with you, Mr. Carter. This is a great question. Former Director of Tourism had on. What are your views on the future of cruise tourism in the Cayman Islands?
Thank you. Cruise tourism does contribute to the Cayman Islands, and many Caymanians do make a living off of it, and a majority that do reside in the Georgetown area. There are people over in East End that I don't think get any or little from cruise tourism. And even when they are in that area, they don't really stop at some of the local businesses. I see them pulling into the blowholes and making, in fact, this is a very dangerous practice that some of these tour operators are carrying out near to the blowhole. They're making U-turns in those big, massive buses across that narrow road, and there are no warnings and so forth. So we're actually putting them at risk. So then there are other businesses up there to the wreck of the 10 sails and throughout East End where cruise tourism don't seem like they're necessarily contributing to a local product in that regards. Overall, the tourism product does. Now, the whole issue of whether or not you want to build piers and all of those kind of things is an important aspect of cruise tourism. And with the large ships, vessels that are being constructed and are calling port here, it's a tough decision to make. Are we going to continue along with what we have and lose the product, or are we going to adjust or come to some compromise? I believe that we should come to a compromise when it comes to cruise tourism. I don't think we can just get rid of it, but I believe that we should be able to manage it. And if it is necessary, I believe that a properly engineered pier could work to assist cruise tourism in the Cayman Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Mr. McLean Jr., need me to repeat the question, or are you okay? What are your views on the future of cruise tourism and the cruise industry in the Cayman Islands?
Well, I think that the tourists that come off of those cruise ships we need to amplify our product, because right now there's minimal things for the tourists to see besides the crystal caves, the turtle farm, the normals. But we need to do more manufacturing of the local crafts in order to give them an authentic, traditional feeling, not something made in China, for example. That's one. The operators and tour bus operators, taxis, they need to be respectful to the tourists, unconditionally. Any one of those that are disrespectful to the tourists, their license should be pulled and fired immediately. Because the tourism is one of our pillars, one of our strengths here in the Cayman Islands. And we are known for our hospitality, our tenderness, kindness, and a true Caymanian experience, better known as Cayman kind as usual. But that said, I concur with Mr. Carter that in East End, we're the most historic district, but yet we have the least amount of tourism being driven up there, and that is something that once elected I will be promoting. because I want to expand on it, that we, not only during Pirates Week, but at any given time, anyone for that matter, but especially the tourists, they can come and feel the vibes, the traditional vibes. They can have even groupers for that matter. We need to bring back the traditions of eating groupers. I mean, if it's a little bit of it, I know the environmental people are going to beat me up on that, but it's the truth. The straw hats, at any given time when the tourists come up to Easton, I want to create an area, by direct to tent sales or otherwise, where they can go there, purchase straw hats authentically made from the silver touch palm, and have the cassava cakes readily available, not only at the restaurants, but and it should not just be channeled. It should not just be channeled to a selective few. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. Ms. Barton, you need me to repeat the question? Okay. What are your views on the future of the cruise industry in the Cayman Islands?
The future of the cruise industry in the Cayman Islands require us to have the competitive edge. In order for us to have the competitive edge, we must invest in infrastructure, but we must respect our environment in the process of doing so. We must also invest in creating new attractions so that our visitors want to come back every year. The future of cruise tourism in the Cayman Islands is dependent on our Caymanian people. Cruise tourism, the experience must be enhanced. The bus drivers, the faces of tourism, opportunities for businesses, opportunities for employment, and we must go east with tourism because we need the population in order for us to grow in the district of East End. Our economy in East End can improve. Imagine if we use the sports dock for cruise tourism and go east. It would provide so many opportunities, so many more jobs, so much more entrepreneurs and employment. That is the future of cruise tourism. We must be competitive. We must have the competitive edge. And East End is the gem of the Cayman Islands. We don't have beach erosion. The naturalness, ecotourism, we must create more attractions. I believe that the future of tourism looks really bright, and we can make this happen with the partnership and the understanding that the Caymanian people must be a part of it.
Thank you. Mr. Rankin, need me to repeat the question? Okay.
My views on the future of cruise tourism starts with the very first fundamental question. Do we want cruise tourism? Right? And if that question is yes, then what do we do to improve the product that we give for the people coming off the boats? It's been mentioned that they're building bigger ships. Cruise industry has said that they're going to stop calling on Cayman because they can't unload the ships with the amount of passengers the ships are taking in order to give them a good experience on the island. We also have to look at ways, and if the country answers that yes, we want cruise tourism, then what we do next is going to be very important. For us to get the kind of visitors we need to come out east, the cruise ships can't be scheduled to leave at 3 o'clock in the day. They need to be able to overnight in the country so that we can get the tourists to stay on shore longer to get more out to the eastern districts. And again, that goes in partnership with developing the proper infrastructure, the roads, to ensure that they can get East End in a reasonable time and also get back to board the ships when they're going to be leaving. But certainly, in my view, once we invest in cruise tourism in the right way, I mean, we have to be very cognizant of our environment. But any major infrastructure projects would obviously need an EIA. An EIA would tell us if we do this, what will happen, and then we find solutions to mitigate those concerns that the EIA would show us. But certainly, cruise tourism is part of puts monies into the coffers of government, may not be as much as stay over tourism, but certainly contributes. And there's hundreds of people who benefit from cruise tourism and who are right now suffering because the amount of tourists who come off the cruise ships are being reduced.
Thank you, Mr. Racken.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Mrs. Richards, you need me to repeat the question or you're good to go?
Thank you.
All right.
So with anything that we consider, we have to ask, is it good for the country? Is it good for the people? How is it going to benefit the people? Cruise tourism is an integral part of our fabric. Many of our people are in the cruise industry by extension and have made and raised families working there. So we do need to consider how we improve the quality of the experience, the authenticity of the experience. What are people experiencing when they come into our country? That also includes looking at the volume of people that are coming in at any given time, staggering potentially when cruise ships come in. I don't know about anybody else, but I've driven through Georgetown and seen when the roads are crammed. And we have to consider, is this what our tourists signed up for? Are they really getting value from or from the experience? So we have to look at the quality and authenticity of the product that we're getting. We have to look at, before we consider any ports, and yes, piers are something that have been discussed for many, many years, but we have to look at what the potential environmental impact is and move forward with the understanding of what that could be and how it could positively or negatively impact our tourism product, and that is for both stayover and cruise tourists. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Richards.
We're going to have the final question for this evening, and then we'll have some closing remarks. So Mr. Corbin will ask the final question.
Mr. McLean Jr., the cost of living topped the Chamber's survey as the issue of most concern in this year's elections. What strategies would you propose to lower the cost of living for all residents?
Well, honestly speaking, the cost of living is pegged with the government taxes, especially on electricity bill, for example. The government should reduce the amount of taxes that they have on there, and that is a trickle effect across the board in many areas. And they have to look at the custom tariffs that they have and reduce that in various places. But not only the government, each individual retailers, they should be considerate and not making 1,000% markup on products also. So from that, I think that we can also look outside the box and trying to import stuff cheaper, produce, agricultural products, put a lot of emphasis into and support the farmers, not only in livestock but in produce, in order to make stuff locally that we don't have to import and drive the cost up with shipping, tax, etc. So there are kind of revenues and means that I think that we can reduce the overall cost of living.
Thank you, Mr. McLean Jr. Ms. Borden, I will repeat the question. The cost of living topped the Chamber's survey as the issue of most concern in this year's election. What strategies would you propose to lower the cost of living for all residents?
The strategies I would propose to lower the cost of living for the people of the Cayman Islands would include for them to have more of their hard-earned cash at the end of any pay period. And I would give an example, a monthly pay period. We must raise the minimum wage. The minimum wage must be raised, and prices are going up, but salaries isn't going up. We must also raise income. There are families that are on the minimum wage and on different scales of wages. When you pay insurances, especially a family plan. They have very little money leave at the end of the day to survive in an environment where global events such as inflation must be managed by the government. Inflation, as we know, the pandemic, war, and we must keep a close eye on the tariffs around the world that has recently been brought to our attention or is the subject matter. If we allow people to keep more of their hard-earned cash, it would include having basic medical, free medical for children. We would assist parents with that because if they get basic free medical care, that would be something less that has to come out of their salaries. The vulnerable, we must also provide them with health care. Affordable housing, they can also be assisted with cost of living. Again, keeping a lot of their hard-earned cash. We must have plans to deal with basic needs, groceries, fuel, all of the things that create families to struggle in these islands as a result of global and domestic pricing and duties that is being paid with imported products to these islands.
Thank you, Ms. Borden. Mr. Rankin, do you need me to repeat the question?
Thank you so much. Cost of living, we pretty much import everything to this country. And inflation is not made in Cayman, necessarily. So by what we import, our food, even the fuel that drives the electricity we use, that has an impact on every single item that we have to use to make our lives easier. Food, fuel, water, everything. So we must look at reducing our imports, and that means invest in food security. We must also look at alternative sources of where we get our goods. We must also look at alternative and cheaper ways of producing electricity, because again, that has a big impact on the bottom line of everybody. Because when you look at your bill, God knows when I look at my CUC bill at the end of the month, the cost of the electricity used is about this, and the fuel is this. Right? So we must look at different ways of how we can implement alternative energy means. Taking the tax off the fuel itself at CUC is not going to assist us that much. Studies have been done. One of the things that we can do, and we have done as a government, we've provided free school lunches. On average, if a family has three children, that's about $15 a day because they get 3 meals. And you 15, that's $45 per day. Times that by 4. That's some savings that the government has tried to assist with them. We've made reduction in fees for seniors. And we've done a lot of other things as a government to try and reduce the costs and reduce the burden on our people. However, that alone won't help. We must be able to do more and find ways of bringing in cheaper imports, primarily from other sources that will help reduce the cost of goods that we bring to this country as well.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Mrs. Richards?
Thank you for the question. So, cost of living is a diverse basket of goods, right? It impacts everything. And while the measures put in place by government to assist with school lunches and other reduction in fees assist, that money still comes from somewhere. You know, it's a short-term measure that benefits the people, and then it is collected by the means that we now collect tax, if you will, through duties. So we need to look at food security. We need to look at how we produce the majority of our own local produce. That in and of itself would reduce the cost of living. We pay 22% duties on fruits and vegetables imported to the island. We've got tons of opportunity for increased local farming, subsidizing programs, training, and growing that. So that not only reduces the cost of what's imported, but also creates that additional layer of food security where we know what we're getting and where it's coming from. We also need to look at diversifying where we're sourcing goods. Right now, it's predominantly sourced from North America, the USA, and again, imports are high, costs are already high, and then duties for those imports are also high. So looking at our neighbors, whether it's within the region or within Central America, and see what goods we can get in and what prices we can. We can look also locally at what we could potentially produce that might overall reduce some of the imports. Because again, it is not just food that's imported. It's everything except for potentially aggregate, and even some of that is imported. So looking at what we can do locally is important as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Richards. Mr. Carter will round off this question segment with you.
Thank you. Now, the government has a food security draft food security policy, I believe. I saw it circulating or something to that effect. But where is it? Probably on some shelf garnering dust, like the many of the other reports and essential documentations that have been completed. So let me be clear. We have some over probably 90%, 95% of the food are imported into this country. And that trend doesn't seem to be going to stop anytime soon. The population is increasing, the demands are there. So certainly we need to expand on food security. And what we mean by, and what I'd like to include, I'll offer some solutions here to the panel, was that what we need to incorporate is a consumer protection board so that we can try to regulate some of these prices, because people are just price gouging, making as much money as they can because there's no control on what they can earn in profit. The other thing is that there was an excellent opportunity for the incumbent minister to have actually done something about the minimum wage for the people in Eastern and island-wide, but that was dropped for whatever reason. So people need to earn at least a livable wage, if it's per hour, maybe around $10 an hour, so we'll eventually get there. I've seen people leave their work, leave their job, take vacation, time off, and go and assist with the cleanup campaign that goes on in this country where they can earn $10 an hour because they earn more money in that 1 week or 2 weeks than some of them earn pretty much for the time that they're employed. So we need to change that. We need to educate our people to get better jobs, and we need to hire them when they get their education and they're available. So another thing is that we want to expand the duty that is allowed for people when they're in and out of this country, reduce a couple cents off CUC bill and Water Authority bill, because those prices keep going up every time you turn around as well. So those are all ways in which you can reduce cost of living to the people of these islands.
Well, thank you, candidates. You've gone through the series of questions. Sorry for some of the interruptions, and sorry to the listening audience for those interruptions as well. I hope you stayed with us. Right now, we're going to take a short commercial break, and when we return, we'll have the closing remarks from each of our candidates. Stay tuned.
For the past 58 years, CUC has strived to be more than just an electricity provider. We have sought to be a foundational company. We give back to our community, and with the hard work and dedication of our employees, we have built and maintained one of the safest and most reliable electricity grids in the region. As we all look to the future, we at CUC want the Grand Cayman community to have confidence that our commitment to you will continue. Join us as we continue this journey together at empoweringcayman.com. For the past 58 years, CUC has strived to be more than just an electricity provider. We have sought to be a foundational company. We give back to our community, and with the hard work and dedication of our employees, we have built and maintained one of the safest and most reliable electricity grids in the region. As we all look to the future, we at CUC want the Grand Cayman community to have confidence that our commitment to you will continue. Join us as we continue this journey together at empoweringcayman.com. For the past 58 years, CUC has strived to be more than just an electricity provider. We have sought to be a foundational company. We give back to our community, and with the hard work and dedication of our employees, we have built and maintained one of the safest and most reliable electricity grids in the region. As we all look to the future, we at CUC want the Grand Cayman community to have confidence that our commitment to you will continue. Join us as we continue this journey together at empoweringcayman.com.
Welcome back to the Chamber of Commerce Candidates Forum for the constituency of East End. We've reached the stage in the evening where we have the closing remarks from each candidate, and we'll go by the order in which they're seated. So we're going to begin with Mr. Isaac Rankin.
Well, I wish the government had a magic wand. I really do. Because then you could do anything you want at the snap of your fingers. But unfortunately, the Cayman Islands government does not work like that. When I said back in 21 that when I got elected, I would work with a government, I did that. I have a track record. I have a list of district accomplishments here, and even though they say I've not done anything, let me just name off a few of those so the listening public can hear them. Establishing and opening the Early Childhood and Nursery Center at East End Primary School. Completed shoulder works from Frank Sound Junction to Health City on both sides of the road. Continuing shoulder works on Queens Highway. Paving of a Civic Center driveway from the John McLeave Drive itself to the building and just past the entrance. Upgrading of the Civic Center, new stage, new flooring, new waste catchment for the kitchen, installation of ice machine, installation of digital screen, installation and replacement of the guardrail at the High Rock near the blowholes. We purchased property for some primary school expansion. We purchased 2 pieces of land near the old senior citizen home for affordable land project and for a new senior citizen home. We've purchased beach property to preserve for Caymanians near the center of East End, near Collier's Beach, and we purchased property in Gun Bay to allow for expansion of the public beach and to build bathrooms near the Gun Bay dock. We've purchased other pieces of property for environmental and conservation purposes as well. But on the installation of we've done installation of ball catch nets in the Donovan Rankin Field, and we've refurbished the old senior citizen home into a community center now called the Sunrise Intergenerational Hub, and that included clearing and developing the beach across the road for that. We've done some paving in the district. We've done some other roadworks. We got the police station reopened, and we have the ongoing construction of 5 new affordable homes, all assigned to East Enders. Before that, we completed 7 homes, turned over 5 of them to East Enders and 2 to other Caymanians.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. Ms. Richards?
First of all, I'd like to thank the Chamber for hosting this event. It does provide an opportunity for the candidates as well as the people of the island to see the candidates. This is a crucial election. I said that at the beginning, and I'll say it again. It's the reason that many of us have stepped forward, the reason that I have stepped forward. We've got many issues, and while there are some accomplishment, our people are hurting. They're hungry. They can't get jobs. They don't have homes. They're impacted. They're fearful. They're leaving our country because they don't feel that this is their home any longer. So these are the reasons that the public, the voting public, need to understand that we have to make crucial, very important decisions coming up for this election. And for me, I want to ensure that Cayman and my district is preserved and our people are benefiting and sharing a part of what is the Cayman dream for everybody else. Thank you.
Mr. Carter?
Thank you. I hear the list of accomplishments the incumbent minister had made for the East End, but you can't take none of that to the bank or to Foster's to eat. The other thing is that the people of East End certainly would benefit sometime in the future, and I think the few things that were done is appreciated. But I'm going to ask one question: that why could there not have been some public toilet facilities at the Donovan Rankin Beach with all of this money and investment, and prevent the youth from having to use the bush, I would say, for number one and number two? People of East End, as I stand on the brink of this new electoral chapter, I am filled with hope and determination. Together we have the power to shape the future of our beloved East End. Our journey won't be easy, but with bold leadership, bold initiatives, commitment, and a shared vision, we can overcome these challenges and create a brighter tomorrow. I am committed to being a transparent, accessible, and dedicated representative for all of you, not just a selected few. Your concerns are my concerns. Your hopes are my hopes. Through my bold leadership, we can address all the present issues and achieve great things together for the District of East End and the country. Let's move forward with courage and determination. Let's build an East End community where everyone can thrive and prosper. Be given a fair chance. That's all we're asking, given a fair chance in your own country. The future of East End is in our hands, and I am ready, willing, and able, and I will work diligently on your behalf to make it a reality. People of East End, I look forward to your continued support during the campaign, and on April 30th, vote Roydell Carter as the next Member of Parliament for the District of East End. My voice will not be silent. East End, your voice will be heard. Thank you. May God bless East End and the rest of the entire Cayman Islands.
Mr. McLean.
Thank you, the Chamber of Commerce, the board. My fellow East Enders, I have been very active in the district, as you know, not a couple months before election. And may I say something, Mr. Will? Mm-hmm. Whenever anyone is interrupting, can you guys address them and remove them from the room, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I'd ask the audience to please refrain from comments.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to crossroads in our country that I have never seen in my 52 years here on earth. My fellow East Enders, I'm here to fight for you. I'm here to stand with you. I will say to you that any job that is within our district will be for our people first and foremost. It is unacceptable for 144 work permits between the two hotels, and we have jobless people walking the streets who have applied and their resumes have gone on file 13. That will not happen under my leadership. I assure you that you will have a 24-hour doctor at the clinic, a 24-hour nurse, and also ambulance at the clinic. I'm not filled with empty promises. You will have a multi-purpose facility at the Donovan Rankins football field for the youths because they need guidance. During hurricane season, you will not be turned back if you need plywood. We will have things being proactively done. We will have supplies for up to 3 months after a hurricane. I will supply you with whatever needs necessary for jobs, and I will deliver my promises to you, my people. You know how I act. I'm probably the only one on this board that is self-funding this campaign because I see it fit to stand for my people before it's too late. This is not my first time running for office, and it may not be my last, but the good people of East End has recognized my efforts in the district because I do it selflessly. Thank you.
Ms. Bodden.
I want to speak to the people of East End. We don't have another 4 years for action. The challenges that we face, rising costs, uncertainty, access to housing and education and healthcare require proven leadership. The 7 homes that was completed, that the incumbent spoke about, was completed as the government started, and the previous government was who was building those homes in the 4 years for the District of East End. About a few months ago, 5 homes. It's not completed, 5 homes is being built. That is not acceptable. We got 700 people waiting for housing in this country, and we need a representative that know how to deal with cost of living, education, housing, healthcare issues, immigration reform. We need to be with a party that is proven stable leadership. We cannot be the only voice in the room. That's false hope. We believe in representing the people of these islands. Our families need security, and future generations deserve better. This election is about putting our people first. With the PPM, we will have a united front ready to hit the ground running, fully aligned with the issues that matter to you. No horse trading. I am your voice. I am ready to fight for East End and work for the future you deserve. On election day, let's choose leadership. Vote for Delmira Bodden, number 1. I want to speak to the bullying and the malice that I see happening in the district of East End to distract voters. That is only a distraction to create fear. The greatest fear I have is that we do not do what is required of us to protect your children, to protect you. Blacktop has always been, and I mean the roads, the ammo that people use on the eve of an election to fool voters. You pay the taxes on your cars to have infrastructure and roads. Guardrails, yes, we need them, but we cannot be dysfunctional. We got employment issues, housing issues. We need to address all of that and deliver to the people of this country. No more blacktop as a vote in this country. It is a right that you get for paying on your car licenses.
I'd like to thank all the candidates for your patience, first off, with some of the technical challenges. I'd like to thank the general public who stayed with us throughout. We promised that the next forum for North Side, we're going to have those technical issues addressed. And now at this time, I'm going to turn over the proceedings to the President of the Chamber, Omari Corbin, for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Will. On behalf of the Chamber Council and staff, I do sincerely thank the East End candidates for participating in this evening's forum. And I'll echo Will and say also thank you for your patience as we work through the technical difficulties. And also to those watching from home, thank you as well. And I really appreciate, we all really appreciate you reaching out to us and letting us know that there were difficulties, and that again speaks to the strength of the community. I do hope that the forum will help East End voters determine who to vote for when you go to the polls on the 30th of April. We do thank CUC, Foster's, and Logic for sponsoring the Chamber's candidate forums. Please join us tomorrow evening as we welcome the candidates from the constituency of Northside, Johanny J. Ebanks and Justin Ebanks. Remember, all forums will be posted to the Chamber's YouTube channel in case you'd like to watch them again. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you'll join us tomorrow evening. Good night.
For the past 58 years, CUC has strived to be more than just an electricity provider. We have sought to be a foundational company. We give back to our community, and with the hard work and dedication of our employees, we have built and maintained one of the safest and most reliable electricity grids in the region. As we all look to the future, we at CUC want the Grand Cayman community to have confidence that our commitment to you will continue. Join us as we continue this journey together at empoweringcayman.com.